You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P. Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the U.S. rifle shooting Olympian Lucas Kozeniesky. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into the sport of rifle shooting?
So my high school in Fairfax, Virginia, Robinson Secondary School had Olympic shooting as or Olympic rifle shooting as a varsity sport. And I developed an interest over the course of my few years there where that led me to shoot collegiately. And while I was shooting collegiately, I made my first Olympic team in 2016. And so it wasn't really like a defined goal at the beginning of my career. But as I kind of, got more mature and moved on with life, that became more of a reality. And so that led me to moving out to Colorado Springs in 2017 and then pursuing this as an adult, kind of outside of the collegiate realm on my own.
What was it like going to NC State and competing collegiately in shooting?
It was definitely a challenging adventure. So being a student athlete in general is pretty difficult. You got to balance school, athletics, and then all the life stuff in between. And so the 20 hours a week that all the collegiate athletes are required to do, quote unquote, don't necessarily kind of encompass just the challenges it is being a student athlete. And so for going to compete at NC State, we had a lot of away matches. We didn't have a range to do home matches on until we set up some mobile stuff in the Reynolds Coliseum my senior year. And so we could shoot up to 12 matches per season. And except for my senior year, we traveled for all of those, and we would go as far as Alaska Fairbanks to travel and compete. So it brought us all over the place.
What was that like getting to travel, as you said, traveling all over the place as a college athlete?
It was exciting because I got to see the country in a way that I've never been able to experience it before. And so we got to like go up to New York. We went out to Kentucky. We would go down into Georgia. And then I found myself all over the country, whether it's Ohio or Alaska Fairbanks. And we just got the chance to see it. And it's kind of like a bittersweet thing because you're traveling, you get to see all these places and go experience all these cool things. And it's all crammed in like a 2 to 3 day window because of, well, you go, you compete, now we got to get back to class on Monday. And so there's a lot of cool stuff we got to see, but at the same time, it's like it was very, very condensed and go, go, go. And the seasons always went by very quickly. Like from September until March is when the rifle collegiate season happens. And once we hit March, it's like, ooh, the school year kind of slowed down, but it was very hectic, but also very rewarding that we got to see so much of the country.
What was it like getting to compete with different teams that aren't usually in the ACC, like Georgia, Kentucky, Florida?
So it's interesting because shooting has very non-traditional conferences, and so like the Southern Conference has their own established rifle league, I guess, or rifle conference. So like the Grander SoCon is sponsors out of the sport, while like the ACC does not. And so we're the only AC, or NC State is the only ACC team that has a shooting program. Turn around to like Kentucky or West Virginia or any of the service academies. You wrap those up together into something called the Great American Rifle Conference, and so that makes up a lot of the teams on the East Coast, where it'd be like Akron, Navy, Army, Memphis, Kentucky. And so these schools that are like geographically closer together, I use them in quotations, kind of brings the grander like SEC, ACC conferences together, and you kind of see the not almost disparity, but almost like cultural differences between the different conferences. Like the ACC operates very, very differently than the SEC does as far as like um, maybe like tone or theme or whatever. And so it was honestly very interesting to kind of to embrace these different dynamics across the different conferences that was under our umbrella of a conference.
Of course, during your college time, what was it like competing against those service academies, like you said, Army, Navy, Air Force?
Honestly, they were no different than any other team. Um, and actually, for in the shooting in the rifle shooting world, it's pretty common for like high school junior athletes to go to the college opens and compete. And so when we go out to shoot these matches, it's like going to West Point or to Navy. That was honestly a very familiar place for us to kind of have stomping grounds. And so, to be honest, they were no different than any other team.
In 2016, what was it like competing as a college athlete for NC State, but also going to the Olympics for the first time?
Um, well, I think it was I guess rewarding is like the term that comes to it because being a student athlete and then moving into an internship with the athletic department immediately after my junior year ended, things were kind of hectic and I was still pursuing all my career. And as we got into the summer, Olympic trials was coming closer, and then when I made the team, um, it was kind of a surreal experience. And it's like, hey, I got to go put a pause on my internship because we have to go do training, we have to jump around the world and do all these things, and the school supported me on that. And I got to travel all over Europe, and we went to different training camps in the United States, and that ended up with me going down to the Olympic Games that summer, where I wasn't the only NC State person down there. There was actually 5 of us. There was 4 swimmers and myself, and so being able to hang around, take photos, and like kind of represent the pack out there it was cool. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. And then reality hits once you're done with the Olympics. You go back and it's like, well, I got to go take my 16 credit hours or whatever, and got to start back on my internship in the college season. And so things just kind of hit the fan, and we just went back to business pretty shortly afterwards.
How was that like, obviously getting to represent NC State on the biggest stage of them all at the Olympics?
Um, like I said, I think rewarding is kind of the big piece because at the time, like, and currently still, like, I'm the only Olympic rifle shooter to come out of NC State, and so that's something that I broke a barrier for them. And to stand there shooting on that line was like, hey, I'd done something that nobody has done yet. And my hope is that I open up the door for other NC State athletes to continue to push the limit and to make international teams to go over and compete. And we actually just had somebody recently, Ben Salas. He's a junior on NC State's rifle team, and he just won bronze at the World Championships in one of his events. So it's like trying to create a culture, or I guess maybe an influence there, where it's like, hey, we can be competitive both nationally but internationally as well.
What was it like getting to travel to Rio in 2016 and compete on the biggest stage?
Um, it was exciting, I think. So my my Olympic experience in 2016 was fairly, I say, short with quotations, because just with the schedule and the timing of everything, I went in, I got to tour Rio a little bit, and then it was all business through until my event was over. And then, being able to explore the city and meet the people was really rewarding, and we loved interacting with the locals and the other nations in the village. But right after my event was done, I had to get on a plane and head back to the United States.
Of course, what is it like getting to compete in rifle shooting along with the 10-meter shooting?
So the Olympic events, one of them is the 10-meter air rifle event, and they expanded that last quad to the mixed team air rifle event. And so the the air rifle and air pistol events are just one position. So they're both standing. So for air rifle, you have a target that's about the size of I guess an American quarter, and then at the middle you're looking, I guess, at the very very tip of a pen. So not like the actual circumference of the pencil, but the very very tip of it is the size of the center of the 10 ring. And so to hit that with a pellet that's just bigger than I guess a millimeter is very difficult. And so there's a lot of time, training, and mindfulness that gets put into this, where when you're looking at a direct comparison, you're looking at, I guess, like bowling, or where you have a repetitive action and you have situations that you're put in where it's like, okay, what kind of techniques do I use? What kind of skills do I apply here? And it relies heavily on that decision making and that mental management. And so for air rifle shooting, it's a decimal scored. So it measures the tenths of a millimeter from the center of the target to where the center of the bullet landed, or the pellet landed. And it adds that decimal up. So if you shoot a pellet that is half a millimeter or half a centimeter away from the center of the target, that's a 10.4. And if you do that twice, it's 20.8 points, and you shoot those 60 times. And so if you're averaging about a 10.5, you're world class. And so at the 2016 Olympic Games, I shot a 622.3, which was good enough to get me in 22nd place. And at the time, the Olympic record was a 630.6. The cutoff was a 624 for that Olympic Games in 2016. We roll around to 2020, and I shot a 631.5, and that earned me the Olympic record. But right near the end of the match, one of the Chinese athletes shot an excellent 5-shot string at the end of his course of fire, and he ended up pushing me out of that top spot. But I still made the final. I was actually in second place heading into the final in 2016 or 2020, sorry. But the finals cutoff there was a 629.9. And so the standard of success overall in the last, I guess, 6 years has skyrocketed as people improved and become very competitive. And so the other side of this is the sport of shooting is a very objective one. And so a lot of people can access it and be competitive with it. But there's the downside to that is, a single mistake might move you from first to ninth, and then that's not good enough to make the final. And so it's a very competitive thing.
What were some of your favorite memories and moments competing in your first Olympics in 2016?
I think the camaraderie was awesome. I mean, being able to interact with the entire Olympic team was cool. And the 2016 quad specifically was kind of like the accumulation of a lot of big names. There was Michael McPhail. He was the best prone shooter in the world. Matt Emmons, he was world ranked number 1 in 3P. He's a multi-Olympic medalist. We had Kim Rhodey. She's the best shooting athlete of all time with 6 Olympic medals. Vincent Hancock, the same thing. He got multiple Olympic medals. And so it was a very veteran team. And so it was just very cool to kind of exist and witness these people and to interact with them. And so these were my idols growing up and being a shooter. And even though I made the Olympic team when I was in college, that kind of started bridging the gap between like, oh, me as an amateur athlete to moving into taking this as a career.
What was the training like leaving the 2016 Olympics to compete for the 2020 Olympics?
I guess I focused a lot on that stress management piece. And so like I was not really prepared. I guess my expectations were to make the Olympic team, not necessarily be successful at the Olympics. I wanted to prove something and represent NC State in a creative way. But when I actually got to the Olympics, I realized that I was not emotionally prepared to deal with the stress. And so I spent the next, 4 then 5 years preparing for the next Olympic Games. And so I just kind of took training in different directions instead of just lots of rounds down range. I very scientific, quote unquote, where it's like, okay, let's look at nutrition, let's look at strength and conditioning, and how do I exercise smartly and be the most efficient with my time. And so I guess taking a more mature approach to the shooting event in Tokyo was I guess the biggest change. So it was a very dramatic transition, and I really started to kind of catch hit my stride in 2019 was when I started to kind of shoot some bigger numbers domestically, and then I started representing well overseas. And then COVID hit, and so we kind of had a break from March until about I guess August, and then we started shooting some matches in the end of the year, and then that led into World Cups and then to the Olympics. And so it was a very successful couple years from 2019 to 2020. won. Um, and so that was, I guess that's the transition difference, I guess, was applying myself differently and then getting the experience.
Of course, with that training, what was it like preparing for your second Olympics and knowing the preparation that it took for the first Olympics?
Um, I think part of it was um, um, well, I think I kind of really honed in on the individual training days and realizing the importance of how all that specific training accumulates to something bigger. And so instead of just constantly tinkering with stuff or messing around with different fundamentals all the time, it's like, well, let me train this, let me be smart about my training and be patient. And so over time, I started to really push myself into getting where I needed to go. And I appreciated all these individual little experiences. And so um, as I got further down the path to the next Olympics, I stopped I stopped changing things as frequently, and it became more of like, well, let's try again, let's find another match, let's go, be smart about these experiences, and the mistakes became less, and then all of a sudden the successes came sooner. And for the Olympic trials this time around, part one went okay, and I won the final, and that put me in a pretty good spot. And then the first day of Olympic trials, part two was good. And then at that point, I don't know, something clicked, and I felt more confident, and I set the national record the next day at the Olympic trials, part two. Um, and so then I made the Olympic team for the second time in my career.
How is it like getting to compete in Tokyo?
It was kind of weird. It was very different than Rio because there's a lot of freedom to go around and do stuff in 2016, but with all the COVID precautions, um, we had like a lot of social distancing. We couldn't go outside and see the broader Tokyo environment, and so most of what we got to see was like pretty much out of our bus. And so we'd get on the bus, we go to the shooting range every day, or and then we come back and then we go to the dining hall, where there's a lot of like plastic cubicles where we go and sit and interact with our team. But we didn't really get the chance to do a whole lot. So um, we it was a very different vibe. And then once we actually finished our events, we were out of the country in less than 48 hours. And so it was a very quick turnaround where it's like, hey, you're done shooting. Go ahead and be done, I guess. And so that's kind of where we ended up at.
How did it feel, obviously, to add OLY behind your last name and represent the U.S. rifle shooting?
Um, it I guess it felt rewarding. Um, and to represent the nation was definitely something that I've had as like one of my core values, is like represent the country, be somebody who other people would want to be on a international stage. And so I guess I keep using the term rewarding or fulfilling, where it's like all this work paid off, and I am an Olympian for life. I'm a two-time Olympian, which is kind of cool. And I just, yeah, I mean, my family background is really big in service, and so this has been my way of contributing to the United States is successes.
What was the feeling like when you got to put on your uniform for the first time and you saw the U.S. flag and the Olympic rings on it?
Um, I guess it was like a dream come true. I guess the very first time I actually put on like a national team jacket was in 2014 as a junior shooter before I made it was before the World Championships in Spain that year. And that was surreal because um I was a freshman at NC State, and I was moving into my sophomore year, and I was working very hard trying to get myself in the best position to succeed. And yeah, it was when I finally put it on, it's like, wow, this is kind of like, okay, what's next? And it was fulfilling, and then it kind of drove me to be like, okay, where's the next opportunity, and how do we start planning for that? So I guess that's kind of what it was. It was kind of cool.
What was the feeling like when you received your Olympic rings, both rings, and knowing that all of your hard work paid off, seeing the American flag and the Olympic rings on that ring?
Um, I think like it was kind of like a speechless moment. You get the cold medal and you put it on your hand, and so it's got your name, it's got the flag, it's got your sport, and it's like you competed at this Olympic Games, and it was the same thing. It was kind of cool. So in 2016, we all had the chance to go out and visit the president, and there was a ring ceremony the night before, and we got the chance to go and just have a celebration, and we got it. And in 2020, it got mailed to my house because of all the COVID stuff. And so it was very the feeling was the same, where it's like it's a reward, it's a representation of all your hard work. And even though the situations and the environments are very different, it felt the same putting that medal on my hand, where it's like, wow, I earned this. This is a representation of the last 4 years. And it just felt great.
What was that feeling like, as you said, putting that medal around your neck and knowing that all of your hard work paid off?
Um, um, it was definitely fulfilling and satisfying. And to sit there and to realize, it's like, hey, I deserve to be here, and all that hard work did pay off to be something. And in my event, it was the mixed team, and so being able to do that with a teammate was kind of special and something great to share. Um, and then I guess kind of afterwards, it was kind of like, wow, we kind of hit that big check box, and so here we are rolling around, doing not really a victory lap, because after a few months, it kind of wears off, and it's like, okay, we're moving on to the next quad, World Championships, Pan Ams, and then as we get around to the next Olympics, so we're kind of rocking and rolling right now, getting back to business.
What is it like, obviously, getting to meet your fans and having them ask for your autographs and photos with you?
Um, it feels nice to share that experience and passion with others. So like those who get excited about this just as much as I do, is kind of cool.
What was that feeling like when you got to sign your first autograph and you added OLY behind your autograph?
Um, well, so like when I was at NC State, we got to do these media days where we go out to, whether it's like a different sporting event, and we got to sit there and sign our posters and hand them out to kids and whatever. Um, it felt kind of cool to be there. It's like, oh, LOY, like it's kind of like a status thing where it's like, yeah, I'm one of the few people who have ever actually done this. And so it's kind of surreal. The effect is kind of worn off now. It's like it's been close to 6 years, and it's like, yeah, everyone else gets more excited about it than I do at this point.
What are some of your favorite memories and moments competing in rifle shooting?
um, Man, there's a bunch. One of the things that's super cool about the shooting world is that it's a very community based environment, and so inherently the sport it's all offense. There's no defense. So you're not defending yourself in any way from another team or another athlete. It's like you are trying to shoot the best you can, and whoever shoots the most points wins. Um, and so with that I guess that connotation that allows people to understand, like, hey, there's something more than just the sport. This is an adventure for me, but we're all in this adventure together. And so there's a lot of camaraderie and I guess connections built over time. And so I guess like my favorite thing is honestly probably being able to share my experiences with younger athletes and let them kind of identify with those things. And I'm one of those people, at this point I've been trained or competing for almost 13 years. And I mean, I've gone to almost, I mean, every continent, every World Cup I've been to has been a unique experience. I've gone places and lost equipment. I've gone places and had things that got damaged. I've been in the hospital before. I won Pan Am's with a kidney infection, and I've gone places where everything went absolutely right and things went horribly. And I've gone places where it's like, oh, we have to pivot and do things. Got to compete during the whole COVID pandemic, and so that was also unique. And so it's kind of, honestly, it's such an exciting adventure. It's hard to really narrow it down. But I think to summarize all that, it's like the shooting world is such a community, and I really lean into the connections that I built with my peers and coaches throughout the last couple of years, and that has allowed me to be successful both domestically and abroad.
What's it like, obviously, competing against those teams like Canada and Mexico?
Um, well, so I guess the powerful shooting nations in the world, a lot of them would reside in Europe and Asia. And so they both of them independently, I guess, in Europe and Asia have their own separate leagues. And those places are very, very competitive. So China is probably the best shooting team in the world across all the disciplines. Um, the um, I guess is not honestly not too different than competing nationally with the Americans. Um, the Europeans and Asians are definitely more of a stronger field. And so as we've gotten overseas and competed, those have been our competitors. Um, the South American countries are a little bit behind us when it comes to the competitiveness. And so when we go and compete against them, it's a little bit of a different vibe. But it's still a competition, and we take all of it very seriously because there's a lot of talented people all around the world, and we never really know who's going to jump out and well, kind of hit a mark that day. And so like when it comes to like the CAT games or the Pan American games, when it's just like the continental Western Hemisphere, those are definitely quota earning opportunities that we can use to be successful. But at the same time, it's like Mexico's got a good few shooters. Argentina's a very strong program. They do a really good job with preparing their athletes. Cuba's got a very strong pistol program, and so I think when it comes to pistol, they're really our main focus and in our competitors when it comes to the other discipline.
Who are some of the people that you look up to in the sport of rifle shooting?
Well, I mean, the one specifically is Matt Emmons. I mean, he's had a lot of trial and errors, and he's had a lot of great successes, and how he's handled those adventures is something that I kind of lean into and identify with as an athlete. And so it's like we get in onto the range, and when I've had a lot of trials, and it's like, well, you know, Emmons did go out there and compete, and he was very strong during that time, and so it's like, you know what, I empathize and identify with those successes.
What are some of your future plans in the sport of rifle shooting?
Well, so I run a company and I do a lot of junior training, and I've been doing that for 5 years. And so when it came to not ending, but after the last Olympics finished up, we turned around and I kind of started putting a lot more emphasis into coaching and training younger athletes. And so that's been very rewarding and fruitful. And what my main focus is getting those high school athletes to a collegiate level, and then they go off and take care of what they need to take care of and pursue their own goals. And so I work primarily with high school athletes, and that has been very good and rewarding over the course of the last few years.
Of course, do you plan on competing in Paris in 2024?
Yeah, that is currently my trajectory.
What advice would you give those college rifle shooters looking to compete in college?
I think experience is a big deal. So like for all these junior athletes who are trying to compete collegiately, you've got to go out and you got to shoot matches, and you've got to go out and you got to be smart about which matches you go and shoot. And so we have a lot of different experiences, whether it's like CMP matches, USA shooting matches, like the different college opens or whatever. And when you put it all into a calendar, it's intimidating because there's so much stuff out there. But for the college programs, like they like good scores, but they also like good grades. And so focusing and finding a balance between the academics and the athletic side of things while also being able to pursue things forward is important. And so I think being smart about your interests is also a big deal. So when people decide to go to college, they usually have a degree in mind, whether it's like engineering or computer science or whatever. And I think making sure that there's a wide berth of opportunities at that university that they can do. You know, I landed on sport management, and that ended up being something that was really great for me. And I kind of wish that I fell on that a little bit sooner instead of, you know, spending my freshman year just doing gen ed classes and trying to find out where I needed to go. And so I've got a lot of kids who have graduated from my program and went off to college, and they think they're going to get one degree, but they ended up getting a different degree and are pursuing it, or they kind of go in circles for a little bit, and that's fine. But I think as everyone spends their high school career exploring and getting experiences, make sure to explore your interests too, and lean into that.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to compete for the Olympics for the first time or multiple times like you have?
Appreciate the time you put into the sport. I think that's what it comes down to. And when it comes to the Olympic trials, that's the Olympic trials is usually the harder match to shoot than the actual Olympic Games, because there's a lot more competitive people. When it comes to like, oh, we're only vying for 1 or 2 spots to make the Olympic team, and so it's a high stress situation, and we are rocking and rolling to get there. So I think appreciate the time, because when you hit that stress, you're going to want to lean into it heavily, and you're going to have a lot of doubts. And taking those experiences will help mitigate that doubt and allow you to be the athlete you're supposed to be.
What advice would you give people looking to represent Team USA shooting?
Get out there and shoot the USA shooting matches. Regardless if it's rifle, pistol, or shotgun, or para, whatever it is. If you want to go overseas and represent us, go shoot the matches, make the team.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Lucas Kaz USA, and drop me a follow, and make sure you follow USA Shooting, the civilian marksmanship program at the CMP. There's a lot of different shooting opportunities and different organizations out there that do a really good job with providing opportunities, and so for people who are even just a little bit interested, just jump on board and see.
Thank you again, Lucas Kozeniesky, for your interview, and best of luck in your future in the U.S. rifle shooting.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Lucas, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.